How can we be a global society if we build walls between nations? Despite the belief that we are entering into an age of globalization, the decision by sovereign nations to build barriers impeding the movement of refugees and economic migrants seems to refute this claim. One of the first examples of barriers being built to stop movement in the modern era is the fortifications built by Soviet bloc nations looking to stop citizens from fleeing west. Eastern Europe was faced with the possibility of a brain drain of intellectuals and skilled workers traveling west for better wages and a more open society. The Eastern Bloc began constructing walls and laying mines to discourage migration. These fortifications became the basis for the Iron Curtain, a barrier that left the Eastern Bloc in their own little bubble, secluded from the rest of the world. At the Berlin Wall alone, 75,000 people were imprisoned for trying to cross the border, with around 200 dying in the process. More recently, barriers have gone up in Eastern Europe and the Balkans in an attempt to stem the tide of refugees coming from Syria and Turkey. These people are attempting to flee the civil war in Syria by getting to countries like Germany, who have offered to take in large numbers of refugees. This has resulted in the buildup of large refugee slums as the people with nowhere to go wait to be allowed to move on. The lack of a safe land route has also forced Syrians to take to the Mediterranean to bypass borders. The new fear is that as walls and fences spread across the Balkans, the refugees will look to the new and dangerous sea routes to cross into Italy and Slovenia. Almost 5 million Syrian citizens have registered for refugee status, but only 1 in 5 have actually had their asylum applications accepted. These lucky few have been able to flee to safe areas in Europe, but the rest continue to languish in war zones or refugee camps across the Balkans and the Middle East. Much of the rhetoric behind these walls comes from the idea of Fortress Europe. This is the perception that Europe is for Europeans only, and therefore should make sure that outsiders and foreign interests do not involve themselves in European affairs. The two previous examples, especially the one involving the Syrian refugees, have similarities to the idea proposed by some Americans to build a wall that separates the United States and Mexico. This movement has come into being because of the fear that Latin Americans are coming to the United States illegally to commit crimes and steal the jobs of American citizens. The proposal entails building a 2,000-mile-long wall from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to San Diego, over the mountains, prairies, and deserts that lie in between. Proponents argue that by blocking off the entire border, this will force people to travel through specific points of entry, making illegals much easier to catch. Detractors say that the price of the wall far outweighs the benefits, and that building a wall isn't even a great way to stop migration. If the wall does get built, the United States will have followed down the same path as Europe, embracing the Iron Curtain and Fortress Europe schools of thought. Americans often like to talk about American exceptionalism, but do very little to support it. Perhaps in this instance, by not building a wall, we can finally show some of the self-proclaimed exceptionalism and not allow xenophobia to impede on globalization.